in just a few moments, but first, let's bring in Republican Senator James Risch of Idaho. He's a member of the Foreign Relations Committee as well as the Intelligence Committee. Senator, thanks so much for joining us.
Sure.
Lots to discuss. Let me get to the issue. 3 generals now, retired generals, serving in sensitive homeland security, national security positions. Are you okay with that?
I am. I think what you need to do is take them one at a time. I know everybody's saying, well, there's too many generals. Certainly, you want to keep that to a minimum, but on the other hand, it's interesting. No one is saying, well, this person isn't qualified. This person wouldn't do a good job. These people, some of these, General Kelly, I mean, this is a guy who's widely admired around the world and by both political parties.
General Mattis is as well. But
same way.
General Flynn, he's got some problems. He does not need your confirmation, Senate confirmation, but there have been some issues with him.
Well, there have been, but everyone's going to have issues. We're all human beings, and I think the media particularly forgets that.
But are you okay with General Flynn being the national security advisor to the president?
I haven't heard all the facts on that yet, but I would say this: the president of the United States really needs to have his pick for a security advisor. So if he's comfortable with that, I'm going to be comfortable with that.
All right, what about the Russian interference in the U.S. election? You've been briefed. You're a member of the Intelligence Committee. First of all, do you believe that Russia has interfered by hacking into computers and other means?
You mixed a couple of things there, Wolf. Everybody here is talking past each other. The question is, did they attempt to interfere and do some things? And then the separate question is, did what they do have any effect whatsoever on the election? Those are two very different questions, and they're always mixed when people are talking about this. It is well known, it is a fact that no one can deny that the Russians attempt to influence elections all over the world. In Austria, I was in Austria.
Including in the U.S. election.
Including the U.S.
So why does Donald Trump deny that?
I'm not sure he is denying that. I think in listening to what he's saying that whatever the Russians did had no effect whatsoever on the election, and no one, including the intelligence community, has pro-offered anything that the Russians, whatever they did, whether it was hacking or whether it was releasing things, had any effect whatsoever.
Because in the Time Magazine interview, and Time Magazine released it, he was asked about Russia in the U.S. election, and he said, I don't believe they interfered. Those are his words.
I would agree with him. I don't think they interfered. I think they attempted.
But by hacking into the Democratic National Committee campaign, John Podesta's, the chairman of the Hillary Clinton campaign, leaking all that information through WikiLeaks and other sources, didn't they try to interfere, get involved in the U.S. election in order to help Donald Trump win?
I agree with you. They tried to interfere. They
didn't just try, but they did interfere. Don't you think they did?
I don't think they interfered. I think they tried to interfere.
Here's what the Director of National Intelligence, a man who briefs you all the time, James Clapper.
I was with him an hour ago.
He said this on October 7th. The U.S. intelligence community is confident that the Russian government directed the recent compromises of emails from persons and institutions, including from U.S. political organizations. He's referring to the DNC. Right. We believe, based on the scope and sensitivity of these efforts, that only Russia's senior-most officials could have authorized these activities.
Don't disagree with that.
Well, then they did interfere, if you believe
they attempted to interfere. Did they?
He didn't say they attempted. He said they did interfere.
We're talking about interfere. In my judgment, interfere means did they affect the outcome of the election? In my judgment, they had no effect whatsoever on the outcome of the election. Indeed, one could argue that if anything, it went the other way.
But
because if indeed the Russians were involved in trying to help Donald Trump, and as was reported before the election, that became a news item, I would think that the American people would go, whoa, I don't want anything to do with the Russians.
But don't you think that all those embarrassing emails, thousands and thousands of emails from John Podesta's Gmail account, from the DNC, that some of them were so embarrassing to the Democrats, you don't think that had any impact on how people decided to vote?
If you want to put up a scale and say how many embarrassing things came out about Hillary Clinton and how many embarrassing things came out about Donald Trump, I think the scale would be about even. I do not believe, and believe me, I've sat through hours of this at different levels, and I'm firmly convinced that the Russians, as they did in France, as they did in Austria, as they did in all other kinds of elections, attempted to interfere. They've been notoriously unsuccessful in influencing elections.
Do you support Senator Lindsey Graham's proposal for a full-scale Senate investigation of Russian interference in the U.S. election?
If Lindsey believes he needs more, I support that. I've sat through hours of this, and I can't go into details on it for obvious reasons, but if Lindsey feels he needs more, I support Lindsey in chasing that down.
All of a sudden, after months of no word, no pictures, John Cantley, the British journalist, appears in a new ISIS propaganda video recently recorded in Mosul in Iraq, where there's a war underway right now. What can you tell us about this British journalist, John Cantley?
Well, what I can tell you, of course, is he has been held for some time. What I can also tell you is they have used him previously in videos like this, attempting to influence national thought or what have you. I wish they'd start showing these in Russia as opposed to the United States, because Russia can put an end to this in a heartbeat if they want to.
All right, Senator, thanks so much for joining us. Senator Risch, always good to have you here in the Situation Room. Let's bring in Sean Spicer, the Chief Strategist